So let's start our evening today. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and my lords. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you all today to the CEO VIP Diplomatic Evening. We have several speakers for tonight who will enlighten us all on Brexit and business opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, to start the evening, please meet and greet the executive board member of CEO Club. So please, I would like to put your hands together for Mr. Abi King Khwaja.
Distinguished guests, I hope you can all hear me, can you? Because we have several of the speakers, much more learned than I am, on what is going on in Britain and Brexit and understanding business opportunities. So they will enlighten you all very shortly. But being an executive board member of CEO Club UK chapter, it is my duty, first and foremost, to say hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this evening and taking your time out to understand a little bit more of what CEO Network is all about. We're launching the UK chapter so that it gives a lot of the UK companies an opportunity to connect with our other global members around the world so that they can enhance and accelerate their business now that we are going ahead with Brexit, as announced by the UK government. A number of benefits which Humaira will explain to you once you become a corporate or an individual member. Some of the areas of CEO Club's network is that it is an invitation-only membership-based organization. The reason for that, gentlemen and ladies, is that we actually select the people we feel can benefit greatly from the CEO Club network. Being focused on business connection and development, therefore, we strive to provide an excellent business platform with unique opportunities for our club members to expand their business. The CEO Club network chapters around the world, as you can see behind me, I have a banner that says we are now called $1 Trillion Club. The reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is because some of the feedback that we're getting from our global members is that they are actually doing some very serious business by connecting under the CEO Club banner. So we're really proud of all these CEOs around the world who are now accelerating the business at a very fast pace. Our members are business leaders, diplomats, and government officials gathered together to exchange knowledge, share experiences, industry insights, and of course, the market-moving trends. We have a few bankers here tonight, and I think they know what market trends are all about. CEO Club creates a diverse and multicultural environment through its regular exclusive member gatherings in the UK and other parts of the world, with strong networking power and business-to-business connections, which once again will accelerate your business development for our members, amongst other members. We hold very high-level delegation visits to various countries to meet senior business leaders, community leaders, and government officials of certain countries and to introduce or be introduced to investments, to various senior partnership opportunities, joint ventures, and of course, mergers and acquisitions. So I don't want to bore you too much because we have a number of speakers who will enlighten us all. So I will end it there for the time being, and I'm sure Humaira will tell you a little bit more about how you can become a member, either an individual member or a corporate member. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, ladies and gentlemen and my lords, benefits of becoming a member of CEO Club Network is to attend exclusive club dinner events and conferences at a free of cost. Create new contact worldwide, the best platform to connect with local business community and international markets. Meeting decision makers and high-profile entrepreneurs to help you to grow rapidly. Opportunities to share your knowledge and experiences to other members. Executive training and learning centers. Speaking opportunities at CEO Club exclusive conferences. Exposure of your company to local and international markets. Access to our international membership system, CEO Club Connect, to accelerate business deals among our members by maximizing their connections and business promotions online. VIP passes to top events and international conferences. Being a member of CEO Club Network means the value added on your personal growth and company strength. New experiences, new partnerships, new friends worldwide. Opportunities like joint ventures, client leads, mergers and acquisitions, and joint venture partnerships are endless. To raise your profile means being visible and getting noticed during the networking events. Last but not least, all CEO Club memberships are only through the invitation, and I humbly request everyone to leave their cards in the champagne bucket so that we can contact you. Right, ladies and gentlemen, these were the benefits, and thank you so much, Mr. Abhi King Khwaja, for your lovely words. Next, I would like to call upon the stage is our main speaker for tonight. Well, I try to make you laugh as well. I don't want it to be boring, you know. Please put your hands together for Mr. Viscount Waverley. Please, I request him to come over the stage and say a few words.
Tahir, I really congratulate you on what I've seen this evening already. And frankly, it's exactly this sort of initiative which the UK, dare I use the word, desperately needs. And needs to be replicated right the way through the land. So I congratulate you and your colleagues. Tahir's kindly suggested as host that I say a word on the Brexit process and offer one or two thoughts. I caution you, though, that there's very little you can say about the Brussels arena without encapsulating many, many words. It's not a simple process, as we all know. But before I begin, I've consulted with Khalid, and if time permits, we suggest, we would certainly welcome, Khalid and myself, that we hear also from you, because your views are as important to each other as it is to Khalid and myself, to understand where the issues are, where the opportunities, where the process is going wrong, and where it's going right. So that we can move this whole process forward. My observations this evening are without political bias. And I will reflect on how I see the situation in the UK. There will be some upbeat remarks, and additionally there will be some not so. The inconclusive general election extraordinary thing. Got it. As a 30-year resident on the continent, I live in Portugal, and I have to date been particularly mindful of the referendum result, recognizing what appeared to be the inevitable. The inconclusive general election, however, has removed those constraints. I will not be arguing this evening on internal market or customs union issues, or the question of fisheries, citizens' acquired rights, although they will be an early test of the government's ability to deliver. I will be observing extremely closely henceforth how matters progress, recognizing that the result of 2 years' negotiation will need to be looked at as a whole and from the perspective of the national interest. The art of successful negotiation that will ensure whatever is agreed will stand the test of time is to ensure that the end result is a balanced, positive outcome for both sides. Now is the time to focus on our approach with our continental partners to address their needs as well as those of the United Kingdom, and to build political consensus, and not forgetting knowing that the test of true leadership is the need on occasion to tell people what they do not want to hear. Emotions understandably run high on this issue, both here and on the continent. Some issues belong elsewhere. Matters that impact future immigration targets, for example, should be recognized but tagged for resolution in legislative debate and amendments to an immigration act. But we are dealing with what we are dealing with today and the here and now. As will be known to all, our media in the UK have entrenched positions, and so do the continental press. They make for disturbing and disparaging reading. We are, from all accounts, in the United Kingdom, facing an identity crisis. We have lost the reputation of being pragmatic and rational. The best we can hope for is the least possible economic disadvantage. And British citizenry are depicted as victims. Monsieur Barnier, the lead negotiator on the European side, was reported last Saturday as saying that he needs the UK to set out its plans more clearly, as he cannot negotiate with himself. This is being echoed in capitals throughout the European Union. It is certainly alarming to witness the apparent disarray in Cabinet. Allegations that the government of the United Kingdom is neither listening nor engaging are troubling. The Brexit negotiations are not a poker game. An equitable divorce is sought, but I'm sensing that this situation could get out of hand. Talking through the process briefly, however, the government's objective is to achieve 4 overarching strategic objectives. 8 bills covering the Brexit process have been announced in the Queen's speech and will be put before Parliament during an extended session. There are, in addition to the catch-all repeal bill, to be published tomorrow, I understand. This will encapsulate EU law into that of the UK's. At the point of departure, Lord Price will be knocking on doors to secure free trade agreements, paying initial attention to those that currently exist with the European Commission. But it should be recognized, however, that there is a global trend, in my view, for intra-regional trade. So I suggest a conversation with regional bodies, such as the ACP, Mercosur, ASEAN, and the Commonwealth, in addition to bilateral. The UK will succeed in increasing exports if we place increased emphasis on tolerance, respect, and the well-being of all our people, bringing all stakeholders to the process around the table. The government do not have a record in this regard, do not have a good record in this regard. While it is proven that our country thrives in time of great adversity, the task is more nuanced. We must be outward-looking and positive as a nation, dispensing with negativity and adopting a can-do attitude. Not only are we called upon to be resilient, we must also be entrepreneurial, seeking and capitalizing on every opportunity. An early question for government is, what do you consider to be your role? An essential responsibility is to create the right environment for the private sector to thrive. Should the government even be considering incentives such as tax breaks and allowances to support British exporters? Government must ensure also that export finance is available where there is traction from our exporters to popular and even sometimes risky markets. The UK must tackle these difficulties with clarity of vision, determination, and renewed vigour. I do have a concern that some who advocate a global vision for the future are in fact narrow in their international visionary outlook. When those same people look to the past as evidence of the United Kingdom's ability to see this through, they do not take sufficiently into account that we've moved on as a nation. Just as I'm concerned that the Commonwealth, and I recognise our friend, the High Commissioner from South Africa here, which many deem to be our saving grace, particularly on trading issues, also has the Commonwealth has moved on with multi-vector strategies. Understanding and being at the cutting edge of tomorrow's supply chain world is key to where our future lies and where we should target. Government must enhance the business capabilities of the civil service and consider an urgent and transparent root and branch reform to meet the challenges of the future. We must embrace the vital contribution of women in society and business. We must relish our extraordinary multicultural diversity. These are the strengths that form the bedrock of our 21st century society, the pillars helping to define and unite us as a nation. UK first, in a spirit of partnership with existing and new friends, should be our mantra. 5 issues, in no particular order of importance, do need to be borne in mind, some of which could be deal breakers. Firstly, there may need to be another process for the final treaty, or the process could be mixed if it is an extensive deal. Secondly, it needs to be remembered that all the national parliaments of the European Union, in addition to the UK and the European Parliament, will have the option to ratify, and so being potentially holding the process hostage to the vagaries of the political order. Thirdly, the Salisbury-Addison Convention is cited whereby the House of Lords does not table wrecking amendments which might otherwise alter government intent. The difficulty has arisen, however, whereby the Salisbury Convention does not apply to bills put forward by a minority government or a confidence and supply arrangement. And from those that are active on the issues are predominantly Remainers. Fourthly, whilst the discussion for a second referendum has rescinded, there is a growing suggestion, including from past senior negotiators for the UK, who have voiced opinion that there is conceivably the process might never happen as being too difficult to achieve. This adds to the case for a so-called hard Brexit, or even walk away right now and negotiate the pieces later. Under those circumstances, I could foresee that the then Prime Minister facing a dilemma whether to call for a second referendum as the only alternative. At least in that event, the voters will be better informed than during the referendum debate. Finally, 2 of many further red lines exist for UK political hawks. The UK proposal states that the ECJ, the European Court of Justice, will not have jurisdiction in the United Kingdom. That is particularly relevant as the rights of citizens will have to be protected by the ECJ, given that the Commission will determine that their duty is to protect the legal and moral rights of all their citizens, regardless of origin. The EU negotiators confirmed only today that major differences exist with the UK, and this after the Prime Minister has presented her offer as being reciprocal. Another example is the lot of Gibraltarians and their concerns. There are plenty of people in Parliament, and particularly I can speak more for the House of Lords, who are extremely angst that the rights of the Gibraltarians to be in the United Kingdom must be upheld throughout these negotiations. However, a potential deal breaker with Spain, vetoing any negotiation unless its position is not realized, should be a real concern to the UK. And I will just say about the question of Gibraltarians, I would really encourage them to engage with Andalusia, to have at least a representative office with their next door neighbours. And I've explained this, in my view, to the Gibraltarians and to others. Time will tell whether the architects of the referendum campaign were cavalier with the future of this country. Time will tell whether 4 decades of real engagement with the European Union was vitally in our country's interest, and on balance, whether a future as a central player in a resurgent union would have suited our purposes. It is my hope that the government are in listening mode. I sense a degree of consensus building in the air, however, and most particularly that the 2 houses of Parliament require much greater interaction. And I think that seeing Khalid here, and I'm delighted to meet him, and I look forward to engaging with you both here and outside this place, so that we sit and discuss, because the whole Brexit negotiation should transcend the political arena, and so we get what's right for this country, and we must all work together. This is in the national interest, and indeed that of the government. Political expediency has driven this referendum process and brought us to where we are today. The electorate have now determined an altered play following the election, with those architects who advocated to leave possibly consigned to the political wilderness if the negotiations go wrong. Let us hope that we don't arrive at that outcome. HMG must give evidence that they can steer this negotiation away from the cliff edge and abyss beyond. We are in a fast-moving world of differing geopolitical and geo-economic alliances. This is a call to action. We are on the starter blocks of a long journey, poised for the off. The prize, a successful global Britain, a critical link to an interconnected world, a vital hub for international commerce and increased exports. Nobody, however, can predict the final outcome of exiting the European Union. I live in hope and expectation, however, that political masters can turn this around. The UK needs to start a process now to prepare for the time when we leave the European Union. We are embarking on an ambitious new journey for which we must prepare and manage carefully. Frankly, the only definite positive news that I can offer you today is that my regular taxi driver in São Brás, Portugal, rightly states the following: the European Union needs the United Kingdom as much as the United Kingdom needs the European Union. And that, ladies and gentlemen, seems to be a very good starting point for a successful negotiation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wayuli. Right, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to call on the stage is the Nimara Capital, the CEO of Nimara Capital. So please put your hands together for Stephen Kuti.
Thank you very much. Lords, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, and thank you to here for this kind invitation. Just a few observations and thoughts from the business front. I'm picking up on some of Viscount Waverley's comments. This is a call to action. There is a sense, I believe, one cannot put one's finger on it, but there is a sense in which some automatic market that would have eventually worked in the EU is somehow less present today than it was a few weeks ago, and that we are beholden there to look forward and to try and be entrepreneurial, be positive, and to look for new markets in new places, and to do so very quickly. There are very few organisms of government which are present today to help small businesses. If they were present, it's difficult to see how they will be made to work for the people running the many SMEs in this country today. So we have to be entrepreneurial and look forward. We are running a small boutique merchant bank, which is one of the many diaspora that have descended down from the bulge bracket global banks into groups who are doing advisory work, financing work, and the like. Our observation from where we sit is that there has never, ever been more dry powder out there in terms of capital looking for a home than there is today. There is enormous amount sitting in the hands of even the alternative investment market, the alternative, the private equity groups, the hedge fund groups, and the like, as well as the sovereign wealth funds who are changing their attitudes to where and how they invest. We, in particular, are looking at all the things that investors really want more than anything else, because we have to acknowledge right now we're in a completely yield-starved environment, that they can look forward and see long-term contractual cash flows coming off the types of infrastructure operations, airlines, aviation, shipping, transportation assets, toll roads, and all manner of assets like this. There is a tidal wave of capital looking for opportunities like this. And we are working very hard right now at introducing those groups of capital to new ideas. So we really, taking this opportunity, recognize that this is the moment for those people who might have otherwise been a bit reticent about making contact and connecting with the governments and the organisms of governments that need this type of infrastructure building, to make a move now, to pick up the phone and to be really proactive and positive. And I'm confident they will get a good result, provided there are the organisms of government in this country can help to work to make the wicket, if I can use a good Commonwealth phrase, as receptive as it can be when the ball lands at the other end. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you again, Mr. Kuti. Thanks a lot. Right, ladies and gentlemen, well, I'm going to take a pause here. Before calling on the next guest, somebody wants to say something for him. And that somebody is the barrister from Bristol. And obviously, he needs to say a few words before I think let him introduce rather than me. He wants to do it. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Shehzada Hayat.
Thank you very much, Umaira. The next guest I'd like to introduce, before I introduce him, I'd like to say this. I was listening today to some wonderful conversations of some of the elites of the industry here. And someone asked Dr. Tahir Akhtar, a man who's an eminent critical care specialist who saves lives at the pinnacle time when a person is about to perish. They call him in, and most of the time, we're grateful, and may he continue with this wonderful work, that he breathes life into this person and stops them from what most people would call critical care, that they would pass away. What would be the connection of such a wonderful man in the business world? Well, for me, I explained to the one gentleman, I said, that is that the doctor wants to do the same thing for some of the great businesses in the world, to get there and make sure that no business, just like human life, must perish. Every business must succeed, because in business, people's livelihoods depend on it, people's mortgages, people's lives, people are employed, thousands of people are employed. Doctor, what a vision, what a great man. If you don't mind, may I ask you to stand up so we can give you a round of applause for that. That would make me happy, Doctor. Thank you. Dr. Saab is a very humble man, so I thought I cannot just sit there and go home, and if I sleep, I will not probably be able to sleep. Say, a great man like this, and I've had the opportunity to say, salute you, sir, and we all salute you for this. The gentleman I'd like to now introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, a politician. He is known in the international community as a true father of the House of Parliament. A man who has been, from the international community, the longest serving member of Parliament in the House, who has seen many prime ministers come and go, advised many prime ministers, even his own party prime ministers and the Conservative Party prime ministers, who take his initiative and his directions very, very serious. He is a man who means well. He is a man who is a champion of cohesion. He is a man who repeatedly wins his election, even if he wants to try. Why? Because he's a caring man. He's a caring man, a loving man, an understanding man. And it's wonderful for our doctor to know that such a wonderful man is shoulder to shoulder with him and supporting him in this great endeavour. Ladies and gentlemen, the man who we call the real MP, Members of Parliament, knight in shining armour, and now has been given a special portfolio of the Shadow International Communities Minister, who better to address us today in this particular political sphere than the dear Khalid Mahmood Saab, friend of Dr. Saab. Thank you.
Where'd you go after an introduction like that? Downhill, I suppose. The Honourable Noble Lord Viscount Waverley, Dr. Thayer, Your Excellency the Ambassador for South Africa, Your Excellency, the High Commissioner for South Africa, Your Excellency the Ambassador for Finland, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Sorry, Austria. Finland was my last meeting, sorry. Finland was my last meeting. Thank you all for coming here today. I've been asked to speak about Brexit, and as the Noble Lord said he will not divulge in politics, perhaps I might take that angle and see if I can some way push towards that side of it and look at the political decision making that has brought us here and whether we're headed in the right direction or whether we need to reassess where we're at. After the 2015 election, very quickly we were told that there will be a referendum on the exiting the European Union. A lot of us took a sharp breath. A lot of people were also very complacent. We were very complacent for one reason, that was that we would think that this is not going to go through. This is not going to happen. And so let's play this out and let's see how it goes and let's see where it ends up. So let's do this was the view of the then Prime Minister, who actually has taken quite a bit of advice on other matters from me, but obviously I wasn't involved in this particular issue. David Cameron was I think in some instances, certainly in terms of communities and radicalization, we did a lot of work together. And for that, I regard him for the work that he did in that community, because it's a very difficult time that we're going through to do that work. In terms of this particular issue, he sought counsel elsewhere. And that counsel was that let's get on with it, let's do it. And let's put it to a side, because the Conservative Party has had issues internally in relation to exiting the European Union. A lot of it for patriotic reasons, a lot of it for non-economic reasons, a lot of it for non-business reasons, a lot of it for the reasons of immigration to the United Kingdom. And so all of those things, at the base of them, there wasn't an economic case for doing that. And I think when the Brexit process started, the referendum started, there became a serious issue as to how do we deal with that? How do we construct that forward, and how do we do that? There became a fairly robust campaign for exiting. And I will tell you something which most people do know, but if you're not interested, I will tell you this anyway. I was actually part of the Leave campaign. I started off on the Leave campaign. The reason why I supported the Leave campaign was because I believe strongly in the union of the Commonwealth. I think the Commonwealth has a huge resource that we can work with. And we have a huge synergy in relation to what we have to offer them and what they have to offer us. A lot of what we have to offer the Commonwealth, we can't offer to the European Union, although we do significant trade with them. But a lot more can be offered through the Commonwealth and the other countries across the world that we do not do that. And from that point of view, the strategy would have been quite simple if we'd stuck to that. We didn't. Because had the election not been in 2016, and had the election been possibly in 2020 for the referendum, then perhaps we might have been in a different place. Because what that would have done, and this is my strong belief, is that if we were serious about going into exiting the European Union, then we needed to be in a place where we could see how we can move forward. It was done on a basis that nobody's going to vote for this. So let's just pile on with it and just do something about it. And when it became apparent through the campaign, a lot of different promises were made, a lot of different commitments were given, and to date, I think not one of them is likely to be realized, or in the future will be realized. It became a very emotional campaign as to an economic campaign. The issue with the whole process of Brexiting the European Union was to have an economic program to deal with that. And we became very emotional. Certainly the Leave campaign became extremely emotional, based it on issue of immigration rather than the economy. So I think until you're able to do that, until you're able to justify that, it would have been very difficult to be able to move forward with that. So I think that was the start of where the issues were going to arrive. Had I been looking at it, I would have started off in 2015 of setting up negotiating teams. And if you had the election by 2020, you would have set up the plans of what you wanted to negotiate on. Mr. Barnier wouldn't be asking us now, what did you want to negotiate on? And he's quite right to do so, because unless you have a plan in front of you, and you've got, what, 18 months to negotiate now? What do you negotiate? How do you negotiate what you haven't got in front of you? And that, in this case, is our biggest weakness, is that we don't have a program still now in a position. There are no directions for the civil service in looking at the key policies that we want to negotiate on. And until you have those, we have a fantastic civil service. We've always had a fantastic civil service. But unless you guide them into the position that you want them to achieve, it is extremely difficult for them to be ball gazing. Some of them are very good, but I don't think they're quite that good to be able to read the politicians' minds. And they do an excellent job in relation to that. So I think the issue was, once you got yourself into that position, then very quickly we should have done that. I think second mistake that we made was rushing into Article 50. And that, again, I think was far more for domestic purposes rather than for the purposes of the economy, of the people of the United Kingdom. It was to keep the hard Brexiteers intact within the Conservative Party. And that is the wrong reason to invoke Article 50. So the Prime Minister invoked the Article 50, not looking at where that would end up and how short a period you have. 2 years trying to negotiate a nation's position is extremely bad, extremely difficult. We just tried, the European Union just have an agreement with Canada. It's taken over 10 years properly to get somewhere near it to be able to do that. We want to negotiate also, I'll come to that in a minute. So, you know, in order to try and negotiate in such a short period of time, it became extremely and very difficult to be able to move with that. And so we find ourselves in a difficult position where we're now, as the Noble Lord has said, that we are starting to move legislation tomorrow and start to look at that, and all the Brexit bills that are coming forward to look at that, and to go through details. No matter how lengthy a Parliament session we will have, there will have to be, in order to achieve government's plans, a huge amount of programme motions. Programme motions, for those that don't know in this place, is that the government stipulates a particular period of time where that debate can take place. Because the governments have a majority, they can do that. Now, the problem we have here is that the government doesn't have that majority per se. So some of the remainers within the Conservative Party will strongly look at that. And the reason why I'm trying to build this picture is for a good reason at the end, and I'll come to that. And so this mechanism has a huge effect in where we want to be in order to try and negotiate this by the end of March, early April 2019. So that is where the real significance comes into. So how do we deal with that? How do we move that forward? So we've had these issues, and we're trying to get there. The second argument is, right, well, let's not have any agreement with the European Union. Who cares? Let them go off and do what they want to do. What we're going to do is going to work with our allies. We're going to work with the US. We're going to have a deal with them. We're going to have a deal with China. We're going to have a deal with India. We're going to have a deal with other Commonwealth partners. And we'll have a direct deal with Canada and also sort of Australia. And all those sort of peoples, we'll be able to have a deal with them. And we'll move on. And we don't need the European Union. The problem with that is that we do with over 50% of our trade currently with the European Union. And if we are trying to work on the world trade tariffs, it's going to be extremely difficult. When we have the manufacturing industry, which works hand in glove with the European industries, particularly Germany, particularly France, Spain, Italy, where manufacturing interchangeability is huge. And in order for a component to be taken from one place for additional value, added value in a different place and brought back, you paying extra tariff every single time you do that. So that makes it extremely difficult to pursue an option, which is said to be under the WTO rules. To negotiate a deal, no matter what President Trump says, with the US, they've got very, very difficult people who know how to do business. And they will not do it just because America wants to do it. They will do it for the best interest of America. India doesn't just want to do a deal. India wants to do a deal on its terms. India wants to ensure that it gets its professionals, trained people into this country. It wants to ensure it gets its students into this country. And there's a stumbling block for starters. So how will we deal with that? How do we move forward with that? There are also issues with China that they want to look at. And so China's not going to be a rollover. You know, you've got almost 70 million people in the United Kingdom. You've got over 500 million people in the European Union currently. So where do you base your trade from? Japan and other people who already have significant bases here, who have significant investments here, what are they going to be looking at? So if we don't achieve the things that we're saying by 2019, there is a significant issue for us as an economy. Our GDP currently is on a downward trend, and that will discourage additional investment for the short term. I just hope it stays for the short term, because in the long term, it will have a very serious effect on how we trade and how we deal with this. The Honourable Lord again said about what do we do at the end of the process. That is the question that we have to address. The Prime Minister went into election on a strong and stable leadership, came out meek and mild, and that has caused issues for us to deal with. Having to go in with a pact, which isn't completed yet, by the way. We can't, at the moment, compete with 10 Irish MPs who are getting each £100 million each for their contribution to this. Not specifically themselves, but it goes to the 1 billion to Ireland, adds up to similar figures like that. And so once we create that deal, but they will have a problem because the DUP's line on a fixed border with Ireland is hugely difficult. They don't want that. They want a softer option for that. They don't want to put up border posts in Ireland. So that for ourselves does counter. There are issues in terms of Gibraltar, and I'm a great supporter of Gibraltar, and I don't want to let go of Gibraltar. It is people who've given a huge amount for the Queen, for the country, and we should not in any way let them down. And that's a serious issue for us. So if we keep to our stance on that, what will the Spanish do? So there are some serious questions in this. And it is not just about our economy, it's not about the deals that we want to do, it's not about the process we want to go through. It is what is the interests of some of those member countries and how they will take those interests forward. So ultimately we come to April, March 2019. What are we going to do then? How are we going to move forward? What will happen at what level of an agreement that comes through? Do we then go for another election and treat that as a mandate for Brexit? Do we go for another referendum and deal with that? Will the current Prime Minister still be in post when that happens? If not, who will take over? And therefore, what will their policies be in relation to Europe? Will it be a softer Brexit or a harder Brexit? And if it's a harder Brexit or a softer Brexit, there will be divisions within the Conservative Party in relation to that. So the political process is laden at the moment with minefields. And we have to be extremely careful as to how we tread through, because ultimately the real interest of all of our politicians, all the people in the House of the Commons and the Lords, is the interest of the nation and the economy of the nation. That is the most upmost, should be in our minds, not for our petty politics. But that is what we have to address and ensure that we do that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Lord, why? Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yes, definitely. Yes. I would like to call
JD.
to do a session of question and answers, please, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. Please put your hands together for the Viscount Waverley, please.
Khalid, it was a great pleasure listening to you, and I hope that everyone here believes that what they've been hearing from Khalid, and to a lesser extent myself, at least is pragmatic, the way as we see it, the situation on the ground in London. We all hope that the situation will be improved. But listen, all of your views are as equally as important to Khalid's and mine. In fact, if anything, Khalid needs to be steered by understanding what your views are on what's happening. We had an interesting talk with Austria. Is he still here? He's done a runner. He's gone. But Austria was extremely, in that case I'll speak by what he was, extremely concerned about the 25,000 Austrian citizens that are based here in London. So could I ask anyone, South Africa, you're here, and maybe you've got it, just Chatham House rules, this is just between us as friends. What is it that are of concern to you that Khalid needs to take note of? Please.
Actually, I've been listening to this also. It's really just frustrates me because I was born in British Guyana, the only British colony in South America. My family worked in shipping and trade like 500 years. And we're so obsessed with Europe. I mean, the only reason Britain is not global Britain is because of Europe. And you talk about call to action. So what have we been doing since the Second World War? I mean, we've been hamstringed by Europe, which has stopped us being what Britain's really about. And, and you talk about call to action, a second referendum, and saying that people weren't educated about the referendum. I could write books on the referendum. And I studied books of the Remainers and the Leavers, all debates in the House of Commons and every club, I mean, the only people, if you don't understand what the referendum's about, those people need to get out there and read about British history and trade and who the British people really are, because we're an international, multicultural society. We're not just about Europe. I mean, Europe to me is just proliferary. I mean, I've hardly ever done any business in Europe, but I do business everywhere else in the world. So, perhaps less talk about Europe in Parliament and more talk about
No, it's, of course, a very interesting point. I'd just like to clarify what I actually said, if you'd allow me, is that I was trying to suggest that we don't know what the political landscape is going to be at the end of this 2-year period. We don't know what's going to be negotiated, and as a result, a political leader may decide that the only option they have, depending on what the results are of the negotiation, or one of the options are, is to call for another referendum because they're boxed into a corner. I'm not suggesting that there should be a second referendum. It was only on that point they may be boxed into a corner of the necessity of having one. That's the only point I make. Halid, is there a point you want to make on that? And by the way, Valerie Amos is one of your great citizens there, and we don't see enough of her these days. But anyway, Halid, is there a point you want to make on this?
Point of principle, I actually agree with what you say. The problem is, as soon as we decided to go into the single market, which is what we went into, and Bill Cash is a great friend of mine. You wouldn't think so, but Bill and I get on very well. We get on very well purely because of the issue of the Commonwealth, because I think there's a huge trading block which should be worked on. I started off, first of all, with the Leave campaign for that very reason that you're talking about. But the problem has become where the bureaucracy has got in the way, where the issues that we've signed up to in order to put it open, where we haven't got ourselves ready to be able to do that. Because we should, when we had the Brexit, we should have been ready to have deals with all the other Commonwealth countries, all the other countries that we want to deal with, from China across to everywhere else, Africa, huge amount of deals that could have been done. The process has been wrong, which is what I've said. And if the process was right, I believe totally that we should be working certainly with the Commonwealth and the rest of the world, because we have a huge heritage, we have a huge legacy, and we should be exporting.
And if I might just add to the question of relationship, Central Asia, great part of the world.
Exactly.
Latin America, great part of the world. There's plenty to do beyond Europe and indeed the Commonwealth, where Britain's future lies. And our trading figures with Kazakhstan, which is a country I know particularly well, we are way ahead of even now, way ahead of the game than the second lot of companies from Germany. We double the amount of activity in Kazakhstan for the oil and gas sector in Kazakhstan. South Africa, you're the senior chap here. You got think about it anyway. Is there anyone else now that may wish to? South Africa, go ahead.
No, I'll be very, very short. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm not so sure where we stand as South Africa back home with all of this, because it happened so fast. I only have time to be back home and to get the latest. Just 2 weeks ago, the ANC had its conference. I'm sure they discussed a lot about this. And yes, I think there are some ideas. But my view is that I think the world needs each other more than we ever did before. There are new challenges that are coming up which were never there before. And I think the more we are united, the more we've got access to each other, the more we can advise and share those ideas or even the resources for our survival, I think the better. The more we are split and are far from each other, I think there is more challenges. I never ever thought in my life that in this country so many people can be killed just like that without any war. I expected wars that were there before, which we all know about. But today people are just killed without any war. I don't even know how the police are managing this situation, because it doesn't look like it is manageable. It's definitely not in other countries, in Africa, I can tell you. So the world has changed so much that we need each other, so that we learn every day as to how to survive and work together. Thank you.
High Commissioner, thank you very much for that. And certainly, as a nation, beyond that remarks of Halid and myself, I mean, we as a nation are really facing turmoil. And we need to work together within the nation and with our friends around the world, wherever it is, and respecting our friends' views in that point. Please, yeah.
Just to add up to the
Yeah.
discussions, I had thought that, prior to the article, that Theresa May would be going around the world collecting FTAs, like a loaded gun, and then approach the European nations and then saying, like, guys, this is what I've got for you guys, and this is my parcel. But instead, none of that actually occurred. She walked in there, with blaring guns, firing away with threats and the likes, and presume that from now on we can start talking business. It's wrong step, wrong color, not wearing the right shoes, and it's just not working out. And I think the rest of the world are watching this, and they're thinking, where is the leadership here?
Khalid. I mean, that's the sort of chat we need in this country. But point taken and no comment.
Oh, by the way, I'm from Singapore.
And we need you as well.
All the time.
Yeah, we need you very much. Anyone else? How about the ladies? Have you got a view about the situation in the country? Were your concerns? Are we done? Is there anyone else who'd like to... Oh, lady, please.
Yes, Russell. So there's a lot of talk about,
Well, we just have HSBC moving into Birmingham, the headquarters from London right into Birmingham, so at least there's...
Where is Birmingham?
I should see you outside, sir.
That's where and that's where the bank that I set up in the
That's right. This is Islamic Bank is also there. I think you're right in the question. There is a real issue in terms of the financial sector and the sectoral approach to what's going to happen. And it's up to us as to what confidence we give it to be able to keep the investment here. And I think that's what's really crucial over the next 2 years, is what sort of confidence that we're able to give the finance community and the sector to say that we can stand here, we can invest in, but also looking at overseas investments that are really taking place. Essentially, if you look at people like Toyota and all of the big companies that came in, we were a gateway through to Europe from that. So what we have to do is in the negotiations, whether we stay, which is going to be difficult now, we stay out, on what basis we have either a single trading opportunity with Europe or a custom union remaining to do that, and that will cost, we have to decide what we pay for that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
I've got you there.
Mr. Waverley. Right, the next speaker, he is a professor at Henley College and also the CEO of Ashford Development. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Dr. Rehanul Haq.
Well, thank you. I think I'm the last speaker. I'm not. Okay. So I shall make it relatively short. Firstly, let me say, distinguished guests, welcome. May I thank Tahir for welcoming me and introducing me to many people today for my first time at the CEO Club. May I thank Abby and Hamera for inviting me to speak. I don't know why you asked me, but let me try my best. My job is to be H.G. Wells. That is, Brexit and beyond business opportunities. So before I get into my time machine and travel beyond the political agenda that my two colleagues from government, from the House of Parliament have talked about, let me talk about where we are as a nation. May I also say to my colleagues, including to Bassem, about talent, and other colleagues about positivity. This is a nation made up of people who are able to do extraordinary things because of our ability to say, we will do this. And I can't quote Churchill, but he's a good example. I thank my merchant banking colleague for saying there are trillions of dollars out there waiting to find a home. And we, Britain, have a home. We want your money. We want to do trade with you. So let me talk a little bit about the key issues, and I shall be only about 3 minutes. And there is a handout, as any good academic will give you at the back. So, United Kingdom international trade history. We all know that. We are a trading nation par excellence. From the docks, where we had spices from India, along with the Portuguese, the East India Company, the Commonwealth trade. We trade. It is in our blood and our DNA. My colleague from the Commonwealth, that is what we do. And whatever the political agenda is, whatever the ownership agenda is, that is what we do. The question of openness, my Excellency from South Africa, thank you so much for your time today. We spent at least 20 minutes together, which I'm so sorry. But His Excellency and I were talking about something that's close to my heart, as I'm in international logistics. It's one of my agendas, which is the One Belt, One Road agenda of China. $1 trillion into a global trading network by road, by rail, and by sea. And the very first railway has gone from London to Beijing via Russia, Kazakhstan, and elsewhere. And His Excellency and I talked about the shipping route in South Africa. I was born in Uganda, a doctor's son, came here, so we made an African connection. And in South Africa, they have many ports, but they have great difficulty getting goods from North Africa and Middle Africa to the south. And yet, the maritime shipping route from China will stop at Zanzibar. Middle Africa, I'm from Uganda, East Africa. And from Zanzibar, the goods will have to go via the Cape of Good Hope and the south. So we got into a conversation about, theoretically, we're creating ideas, we don't have the knowledge, no one's got the research with us at the moment. And we thought, well, maybe South Africa should pitch itself as position itself as its ports as a stopping off point on the trade route between Zanzibar and Europe and Africa and United States. And His Excellency said to me, I'd like to build ships. I'd like to build ships, both for the international trade as well as the domestic trade around the coast. And a gentleman over here, where are you? There you are. He came up to me and looked rather nonplussed because he wanted to talk to the Excellency, and he thought, who is this man? And he's interrupting me. But I had a conversation, and I asked him, what do you do? He said, I provide steel. And I said, do you provide steel for shipping? And he said, yes. I said, why don't you talk to him? Because he wants to build ships. And now these two in a connection. This is the openness of Britain. And if I may, Humera, this is the possibility of the CEO Club. People who have resource, power, and authority can connect in an informed environment and suddenly come up with ideas. And absolutely, 95% of ideas are idiotic. 95% of ideas are ideas that don't go anywhere. Ideas are cheap. But maybe these two will talk together. And maybe they'll talk to the two of you. And maybe suddenly your president will meet President Xi. And maybe suddenly a South African port will be part of the shipping process. And maybe more goods will trade. And what will happen? Global poverty will go down, global trade will go up, just as a corporate banker in the 80s, I funded outward internationalization, and we made nations grow. Dubai, when I first went there in the 1980s, and I financed infrastructure and property, had 2 hotels on Jumeirah Beach. And Al Maktoum, the father, said, we're going to be a trading nation. We're going to be a trading nation, and we're going to be one of the greatest hotel destinations in our region. They've done it. So, strong foundations. Who are we? We have the rule of law. We have transparency. We have some of the best court systems in the world. If you do not want to send your physical goods through London, do your contracts through London. Because then you can be assured that any contract disputes and so on will be settled in relatively good order. If you're getting restless, please indicate and I'll speed up. The processes are good. The time zone is excellent. We are right. In the morning, we can trade in Beijing. In the afternoon, we can trade in California. Language. Well, by stroke of fate, English is the language. Here we have half the world represented, and all of you are speaking in English. Not one of you spoken in a foreign language. This is the language of trade and of everybody. Ethos. Our ethos is one where we welcome everybody. We get negative comments, but we've got South Africa. I'm not sure which country you're from. United States. We've got Singapore, an Indian from Singapore. My apologies. Okay, so we have everybody represented in Britain in some way or form. 43% of Britons are graduates. increasing numbers have got MScs and PhDs. One person I talked to spent an hour discussing with me how to link up the Oyster card with buses and development and road. That much brain power on that narrow area, that much expertise. We have over 100 universities in the UK, and the universities by government diktat are being pushed to no longer being ivory towers of research for academics, but to use that academic knowledge to help the world of business and trade and activity. We have renowned global industries. Finance, we know about. Number one financial center in the world. I'm sorry, we beat New York in the latest rankings for the last 3 years, and I have the evidence for that. But we are very, very close to New York in activity. Professional services, we have the KPMGs, the Price Waterhouses, we have the Accentures, the IT networks, the IT firms. Legal, we have very good legal firms, as you know, Pinsent Mason, or Pinsent Mason or Pinsent Curtis? Pinsent Mason, but also we have arbitration networks here. So if you get into a dispute, we can settle it without going to court in binding or non-binding arbitration. We have technology firms coming out of our ears. We have the highest rate of growth of technology firms in Europe. All the big, despite Brexit and all the dangers of Brexit, all the multinational, the American technology firms are here. Google. Google has just arrived in Birmingham to provide another center there, which Khalid would no doubt know about. Medical. We have some of the best biotechnology and medical firms in the country. In Birmingham, there is a new section of the campus being built just by the University of Birmingham, which is medical technology, medical sciences. High-end manufacturing. Dare I say this? Everyone says we don't have a manufacturing industry. We'll go to, as I did earlier today, Trafalgar Square, and tell me that Formula One is not high-end manufacturing. And sorry, I'm getting emotional. One of the top teams is a team named after a drink called Red Bull Racing. It's in Milton Keynes. Almost all the Formula One teams are here. The engineering, the metallurgy, all of those things are here. Land Rover Jaguar in my part of the world, absolutely brilliant, Indian-owned. And in the recession in 2010, it went global without government finance and is selling Land Rover Jaguar products and services all over the world. McLaren, my favorite, Ron Dennis, superb sports car, made here with a technology company that's providing technology to other companies. Anyone says that we're no good at manufacturing, tell them they don't know a thing. What about the other one, Aston Martin, Bentley? There are plenty of Bentleys here in Belgravia. Yep, very nice. German technology, British engineering, and British cows. Green energy and technology, we're a leader in that. Alongside the French, green auto, that's a big area for us. Khalid, you will see that with Coventry, for example. FDI is welcomed in universities. We are an open country which, except in a few strategic instances like nuclear power and the Chinese and a couple of others, welcome foreign companies to own our companies as long as they operate by our laws. India, Land Rover Jaguar, McLaren is, I think, predominantly UK. Aston Martin is Q80 and elsewhere. Bentley and Rolls-Royce, they're both German-owned and part of the German network. So we are happy for you to come here with your funding for us to provide the products and services. If you look at the professional services firms, you'll find international ownership. If you look at our stock market, you will find that a relatively small percentage is owned by British capital. And you as an investment banker will know that that global capital is sitting there in our industries, in our stock markets in London. Markets, FDI is welcomed in the universities. If I've got 30 seconds? Yeah, I've been told, okay. So universities. Recently, the University of Manchester, which also split the atom, and the University of Cambridge, who came up with genomes, the University of Manchester has recently invented graphene, and the Chinese have taken on graphene, a license, so they can use that superconductive technology elsewhere. Markets, we have solid markets, and we have regulators. And when the markets don't work, we intervene. Firms, every single firm in the UK can be registered within 2 or 3 days, which is one of the shortest periods of time, and everything about that firm is transparent on Companies House. Industries, there are many industry associations. Government is open to global collaboration, and I think Khalid and yourself, Viscount, will know how open government is to talk. And my final comment is world trade rules apply. So even if they're difficult, as Khalid said, and even if we're going through a transition, there is some rule base under which trade can take place. And finally, on page 2, as any good academic will provide you, is a list of websites, resources, and many of them provide data on Brexit and the relationship between Brexit, this business sector, and professional services. Thank you very much for listening to me. Abby, don't make this mistake again.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Rehan. On behalf of CEO Club UK chapter, I'd like to call upon Dr. Tahir to come and join me on stage just for a few minutes, because there's a young lady here today who's worked very hard over the last 3 months to design the invitations, to send them out to all the embassies, to call the embassies, and to talk to the various secretaries of excellences so that we could launch CEO Club UK chapter. I would like to say, as a way of thank you to this young lady for all her support today. Humaira, thank you so much. If you come along and have some fun. Thank you so much. Idhar aa jaओ.
In front of us.
Thank you. She's a friend. She's a friend. Thank you.
Well, I would like to thank everyone, His Excellencies, my Lord. Thank you so much, Mr. Waverley. Thank you so much. And I really would like to say this was a surprise for me, but honestly, thank you so much, Dr. Tahir. Thank you. Yasmin, please, I request you to come over the stage as well. Yasmin is Dr. Tahir's wife. Please, I want you to come and join us as well. The stage is small, I'll get down, but thank you so much as well. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry?
Dr. Tahir's going to say a few words.
Yes, please. I just asked him in between as well. Dr. Tahir would like to say a few words. Please, go ahead with it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just to say, it's been a wonderful evening. My Lord, Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, and dear friends. It's been an absolutely marvelous evening, and I'm very grateful to you all for making it such a special evening for me. And all I have to say, that this is just a simple start. This is the seed that we've sown today, not the tree that we've planted. And let's all work together. Let's water the seed. Let's keep this relationship together. Let's build it. And all being well, we will see this developing into a nice tree that will give shade, hopefully, to many good businesses around the world. Thank you very much for coming this evening. Thank you.
I'd like you to also congratulate